All right, it's that favorite time of the week. As always, we got Friday Night Meta here, a weekly series on the channel where we give you the latest and greatest decks and strategies for you to help evolve your game here on Magic the Gathering. Now, with that said, we are over halfway for January for Brothers War right now, starting to get a little bit more settled, as I always like to say, a little bit more mature Mythic as a competitive tier right now. Looking forward to digging into that as always. Now, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate the likes and the subs. If you happen to have a question throughout today's episode, do let me know. Other great ways to stay up to date as well down below, and down there you'll find the timestamps where I break down each of the formats. We also go into best of 1 and best of 3 for you today. And with that, thank you to all the members too, as always. All right, Planeswalkers, with that, here's what we got going on in standard best of 1. Right now, Azura Soldier's claiming the top spot, really starting to distance itself once again in terms of what's happening in best of 1. So originally, kind of at the beginning of the month, was a little bit more packed, now a little bit more spread. Now this is bronze to mythic, so it does include everything there. Now a top popularity, we do have mono red burn, Azura Soldiers, and then mono black aggro, again lifting above kind of everything else a little bit more compacted there in the space in terms of what we are seeing. Now we don't have that mono white soldiers, that's kind of falling off, being kind of replaced by that mono white aggro, so that's always good to see what's going on there. Now when we look at what's happening in terms of that popularity, again we see that mono red burn getting popular. We see a little bit of a dive there in soldiers, as we just talked about, not quite ever eclipsing mono red, that mono red being a very popular favorite deck, as you can see the trends with Brothers War. And then again on the win rates over time, we do see that Azura Soldiers coming down and then kind of maintaining, like I said, everything else kind of compacted with each other there, as you can see in terms of win rate and popularity as well. So that is at a whole level. Now let's go dive into Mythic. At Mythic, Azura Soldiers still at the top. We do see mono white soldiers back in, but not at the full-blown level. Grixis mid-range doing very well, also moving around. You see some of the other mono black decks dropping, and mono blue tempo as well. Then on the right here again, we see that popularity. We can see some of those trends there as well. So that is Mythic. All right, let's go ahead to best of 3. Best of 3, we have Azura Soldiers at the top. We have Esper Legends, Mardu Angels. Again, pretty consistent in terms of what we're seeing. Again, here on the popularity side, Grixis midrange definitely dominating. Azura Soldiers moving up, and then Esper midrange, mono blue tempo getting in there as well. Now we can see the stuff here on the right. Again, Grixis midrange heavily dominating. Like we said, Azura Soldiers lifting in popularity, and then Esper midrange there. And then here on the right, we also see that Azura Soldiers taking off in terms of win rate. Esper Legends there as well, kind of still steadily doing very well. And again, this is an aggro outtake. Let's go ahead and look at Mythic. Mythic is still similar. You have Azura Soldiers at the top, Esper midrange, Grixis midrange, Rakdos midrange, and then as you see, popularity again dominated by that 32% there. All right, so that concludes standard for the week. Let's go ahead and move over to Alchemy. Alchemy here, we have mono red burn at the top, 20% heavily dominated. We do have dimmer turns though. And second, Rakdos Sacrifice. Now on the right here, you do have mono red aggro doing well, Junt Sacrifice doing well, mono black control, mono red goblins in there, Rakdos Sacrifice, Cruel Werewolves, and then that dimmer turns. Here you can see mono red aggro kind of falling off, and then a huge pickup there on that dimmer turns deck. And then here on the right, again, mono red burn, win rates increasing, mono red aggro, win rates increasing as well. So that's at a macro. Let's get into the micro here when we look at Mythic and see what we got going on there. Primarily dominated by mono red aggro. All right, let's blow that all the way back out. Go to best of 3. In best of 3, we see Grixis midrange at 73%, Rakdos Sacrifice, Rakdos midrange, mono red goblins here, Grixis midrange at 42%, Sacrifice at 12, Rakdos 12, and goblins at 1%, squeaking in there. And here you can see Grixis midrange really moving up and dominating here, similar on the win rate, and you can see that Rakdos Sacrifice as well. We will go ahead and look at Mythic and see if there's anything in there. A little bit, 74% Rakdos midrange as well, and Rakdos Sacrifice, Grixis midrange at 45% played, and then again you can see kind of that trend. So that is Alchemy in totality for us here. Let's blow everything back out and move over to Historic. So this week I did get some Historic play in. Really had a lot of fun with some interesting decks you can check out here. as well by browsing around on the channel. Big thing here, we do have Is It Belcher at the top now, though, for terms of win rate. Is It Wizards? We got Azor's Control, Selesnya Squirrel Twin in there, Rakdos mid-range, Mono Green Elves, Mono Red Aggro, Mono Green Devotion. On the right, dominated by Is It Wizards at 12.5%. You can see that it's been a very, very popular list. And then on the right here, we do see that Is It Belcher coming up with that win rate. Wizards has been fairly consistent at most parts, week over week for us here as well. Now, let's go ahead and check out Mythic and see what we got going there. We do have Rakdos midrange actually being at the top. 5.5% played. Interesting to see that. And you got Is It Wizards there, and then the other two as well. So interesting there when we look at Mythic, a little bit of a different picture. So I would like to check those out. Now we move over to best of three. Best of three, we do find Rakdos midrange, Azor's Affinity in there. Is It Wizards, Mono Green Devotion on the right. Mid-range domination, Mono Green's pretty heavy as well. Let's go ahead and see what we got going on. As you can see, huge uplift there in that Rakdos midrange. Here on the right again, or underneath, you got that Mono Green Devotion kind of falling off in terms of popularity. Now Azor's Affinity doing really well there. Now we do see that Rakdos midrange kind of just popping up twice, even though I would say Azor's Affinity has probably been a little bit more consistent there in terms of those win rates. So keep those things in mind. Now that is best of three at an aggregate level. Let's go ahead and look at Mythic. Mythic Rakdos midrange dominated at 31%. So a lot on that. So very big to keep those things in mind. So that concludes Historic for the week. Let's go over to Explorer. Explorer, we see Selesnya Angels at the top here at 57%, followed by Abzan Greasefang, Boros Heroic. I think some of those have moved around since last week. Then on the right, we see Selesnya Angels, Mono Green Devotion, Boros Heroic, Mono Red Aggro, and then the rest behind there. Here we do see what I said, some of those changes there, that Mono Green Devotion falling. We see Selesnya Angels getting a little bit more popular. A couple trades there, that Boros Heroic getting more popular as well. And then again, we saw that Boros Heroic more higher on the win rate at the beginning of the season, now kind of getting back into it as it had fallen before. Selesnya Angels, like I said, getting back at the top. And then kind of a interesting trend here for Abzan Greasefang as well. And then a little bit less consistent or lower, well, still fairly consistent Mono Green Devotion there. So, and you can see everything else. That is best of one and at aggregate level. Let's go in and dive into it here at the top. And we do see Boros Heroic at 63%, followed by Selesnya Angels. So that's a pretty big shift. So keep those things in mind. Again, we've been seeing that move around quite a bit. And again, I think a good one to comment on for this week. All right, best of three, Mono Blue Spirits, Domination. Then we got Selesnya Angels, Mono Green Devotion, Gruul Vehicles in there, Mono White Humans, Rakdos Midrange, Azor's Control, Mono Red Aggro. Now on the right here, we got Mono Green Devotion, Rakdos Midrange, Azor's Control, Selesnya Angels, making up that top half. We do see things trending down. Again, Mono Green Devotion, similar, Rakdos Midrange gain less, so that meta is getting a little more packed. Popular over time. Again, Mono Blue Spirits has fallen down, even though it's been fairly consistent, I guess, across its win rates. And again, creeping up there here. And then additionally, we see that Selesnya Angels falling off, but still staying a little bit heavy. And then you can see Mono Green coming up. Everything else kind of trending a little bit differently. Looks like up towards the end of the week there. So very interesting when we look at Explorer best of three at a aggregate level. Let's go ahead and roll in. Now here we don't see Spirits. We do see Selesnya Angels, Mono White Humans, Mono Green Devotion, and Azor's Control. Mono Green Devotion at 12% there. And then pretty heavily played decks in terms of that best of three. So we'll move out of Explorer. That will conclude that. And last but not least, we do have Historic Brawl. So Historic Brawl, Rusko is still in there at 70% wins. We do see Teferi moving in there. Kinnan Bond are back in, the first sliver, Gix, Azusa, Goshen, Tai, and Yorok. Again, Rusko being very popular at 6, and then everything else falling below that. Here on the right, Rusko is coming down. So for those of you that got sick of playing against Rusko or sick of playing Rusko, you can see a huge change here about getting cut in half in terms of play. We do see that Azusa popping up. We do see those other pops in terms of what's going on. Similar there with Uro. and other things. And then we do start to see a little bit of a decline here with Rusco. Not much, but in terms of win rate, we do see the first sliver kind of creeping back up, which is always fun to see in terms of some of the trends and shifts. All right. So, Planeswalkers, we covered a ton here in our soundbite in our weekly series for Friday Night Meta. I love doing this and giving you the snapshot of all the relevant information to help keep you on top of your game. Or if you enjoy data and learning, it's a great way for casual players as well to kind of understand a broader system of decks, how they interact with each other, and kind of where they stack rank, which is great. So with that, Planeswalkers, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subs. As always, appreciate the members and other great ways to stay connected and up to date on the channel. Now, if you have a question or comment, do let me know. I'd love to hear from you, and feel free to swing by the Discord server. All right, Planeswalkers, with that said, we'll see you again next week, and we got a ton more stuff coming your way here as always. All right, take care. We'll see you soon. Mythras, out of here.